Thank you, Ambassador Bellamy, for that very kind introduction. You know, it's a pleasure for me to be with you this morning. I'd just like to, I think for all of us, express appreciation to the ACSS, Ambassador Bellamy. I won't call off names, but ACSS has been very, very helpful to all of us, I think, in putting this together, getting a very good agenda set of participants. And obviously, Ann Casper and her team at the embassy here have been very helpful as well. And most of all, I would like to thank our colleagues from the government of Rwanda. It's an impressive delegation that we have here this morning from our government partners here in Kigali, and we appreciate all of the work that we do together. Ambassador Bellamy gave us a good introduction to this workshop. I would like to just start off and step back for a moment and look at the larger context. For me, as I work on African affairs for Assistant Secretary Carson, for Secretary of State Clinton, it's an amazing time, really, to be engaged with our African partners. I would just say, I think from the highest levels of governments that we work with to school children in remote villages, the energy and enthusiasm of Africans for their future really resonates across the continent. And I was struck by that. I had the chance to travel a bit here outside of Kigali and in Kigali as well. It's just a remarkable time, the amount of the development, the speed of the development, the positive things that are happening are really just most impressive. For the United States, building from President Obama's address in Ghana in 2009, we have focused on some broad principles and goals in Africa, such as promoting democracy and good governance, expanding economic opportunity through growth and development, strengthening public health and education, helping to prevent and resolve armed conflicts, and partnering to address transnational challenges, including narcotics trafficking, climate change, and what brings us here this morning, violent extremism. The U.S. has a multi-billion-dollar set of programs that support progress across all of these broad goals and all of these broad areas. And there are a number of U.S. agencies. Ambassador Bellamy mentioned some of the partners that we have here this morning. But here in Rwanda and in many countries, we have the Millennium Challenge Corporation. We also have the Centers for Disease Control in the health area, Justice, Treasury, and of course State Department has a number of programs that try to address the broad development and political agenda that we have with Africa. I would just say within this agenda, we've also reached out particularly to women and to young people. Again, another focus that we share this morning. President Obama's forum with young African leaders in August of 2010 led the effort to connect young Africans and learn about their interests, concerns, and ideas for the future. We believe that developing and empowering the next generation and working together is the only way to creatively deal with the enormous challenges before us. And as we all know, the challenges are enormous and complex. We're all concerned, for instance, by the crisis in the Horn of Africa, the humanitarian crisis in the Horn of Africa, and especially by the continuing conflict in Somalia, in which youth radicalization plays an important role. I'd just like to pause for a moment and express our appreciation, I think, for all of Ambassador Boubacar's partners for his work in trying to resolve the conflict in Somalia. It's a remarkable constellation of partners that we have. The Africa Union, very much a leader, the United Nations, a real constellation of African and other countries that are trying to help with the conflict there, resolve the conflict, and address the humanitarian crisis in the Horn. But we also can think about what's going on in northern Nigeria, just the attacks in Kano of the last few days. The challenges are enormous and complex, and we're all going to have to work together to address those, to continue to make progress. And progress there has clearly been in Africa. As I look out over the audience this morning, I'm struck by the group's diversity. Assembled from 11 countries and a number of international organizations, each of us probably arrived with a different understanding of youth radicalization, of how youth radicalization occurs. As the ambassador mentioned, context is important. There are different processes at play. We also may have different approaches to how do we prevent youth radicalization. And I hope this workshop will help all of us find better ways to work together, both within our individual networks and across our nations and across our networks. As the ambassador mentioned, there isn't a one-size-fits-all answer to youth radicalization processes. Neither is there a one-size-fits-all answer to the problem, to how to prevent it. But workshops such as this that reach across borders are a powerful tool for cross-fertilization and harmonization of our efforts. After all, those who promote violent extremism act regionally and globally. I'd like to highlight a couple of U.S. programs relevant to a U.S. program relevant to our discussion today. That would be our Partnership for Regional East Africa Counterterrorism, which goes by the handle of PREACT. It seeks to develop relationships for long-term engagement with our African partners, to build counterterrorism capabilities, and to address the full gamut of issues that you'll be discussing today in terms of youth radicalization, the drivers of radicalization, and the various social issues that are around those drivers. This PREACT is an interagency, multi-year initiative. It brings together law enforcement, military, development, and public diplomacy expertise. The regional fora that come together on a wide range of issues within East Africa, the Africa Union, and new networks of young African leaders, such as the African Leadership Network, are great ways to share best practices and to generate new ideas. Some of you represent military or security institutions in your home countries. Some of you come from civilian government ministries, and others work with non-governmental or civil society organizations. All of you bring valuable perspectives and insights to the table. Using a broad interdisciplinary approach, we can jointly advance our common interest in countering violent extremism. We need to better understand the challenges that push and pull young people around the world toward violent extremism. We also need to develop viable alternatives to channel their frustrations, satisfy their ambitions, and to challenge injustices in the world, but using peaceful means. A lot more work needs to be done. This workshop is an important part of forging a common way forward for all of us. I mentioned briefly the U.S. government's extensive set of programs supporting work in education, health, economic and agricultural development, as well as improving governance and promoting democratization. Most of these programs involve working with and helping to promote civil society organizations that are so important for the subject of this workshop, addressing youth radicalization. These successful partnerships with African governments and non-governmental organizations can serve as models of innovative programming. I would highlight two examples for you. Our embassy in Kampala has helped to fund Uganda's Muslim Center for Justice and Law to produce a human rights handbook. In fact, the head of that organization, Jefferson Ganda, is here today, and we're very pleased that he was able to join us. This handbook will assist local Muslim leaders to articulate issues of human rights, good governance, accountability, and responsibility, not only within Uganda's diverse Muslim community, but throughout Uganda, and especially aimed at young people. I would also highlight a Somali that works in Islay. Our embassy in Islay has forged a partnership between some of the community leaders in Islay with government of Kenya officials to try to address alienation issues and difficulties between some of the government offices there and the people of Islay. I think it's been very successful. And we have with us the leader of a group known as the New Era. And that does, thank you, we met just briefly last night, has developed quite a reputation for Somalia. And just the name to me captures exactly what we're all trying to do, what Ambassador Diar, what we're all trying to do in Somalia, and that is to build a new era, to create a new era where peace and stability and good governance reign, and where there will never again be a shortage of food. for the people of Somalia and indeed for the Horn. So I would just like to express again my appreciation for the opportunity to be here and for all of the hard work that has been done to bring us together and to wish you success in the week to come. Thank you.